Head coach Brian Flores files a class action lawsuit against the NFL. Is this going to be the tipping point to increase the number of black coaches in the NFL? Let's talk about it here on the Soapbox.
Together we just the hottest. Pick a topic for discussion. We gon' rock it for the public. And be honest, this is nothing. Watch the progress, cause it's coming. This is everything you think, but you can't express. We a vessel of the people in innate interest. Can't put us in a box, though we play in chess. Kings and queens on the board, never say unless. I mean, entertaining and educating on my folks. Over the party, catch us at the live show. Live show? Live show? Live show? Yeah, the live show. Entertaining and educating on my folks.
Hey, welcome to the Soapbox Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Legacy, and I am glad to be here on a Thursday, as we always are, every week. The most infamous podcast on all your streaming services. Let's get to it. Introduce the co-hosts, looking dapper. All the co-hosts looking dapper. Let's start with the lady from the north. What's going on, Jesse?
What's popping? What's good? Like always, happy to be here. Feeling blessed and highly favored. Let's have a good show, y'all.
Let's do it. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of heavy hitting stories going on today. Shout out to Soapbox Nation. Soapbox Nation Myers, thank you for showing us love. Let's all the way via I guess we'll say via satellite, so we'll sound a little bit more important. What's going on all the way in Tallahassee, Florida? What's going on? Just Giovanni, how you doing?
Hey everybody, what's going on? I am, I guess like Jess said, blessed. I'm off camera for everybody that's watching it live, but if you're listening to it just via podcast, I hope you are happy to hear my voice.
Yes, always. I am.
Always. And of course, what would the Soapbox Podcast be without homeless millionaire, Mr. Alan York, NYC? What's up, man? How you doing?
We in 2022, Alan.
Yeah, 2022.
No, but listen, guys. Listen. What happened was I had to clear my throat, so I didn't want to put it back on. Also, what's cracking? What's popping cracking? You know, as always, it's lovely to see you guys' faces and via satellite. So I appreciate you guys coming together and chopping it up with us today. Soapbox Nation, what up? And last but not least, my man TJ. What's up? Kick it back to you. How you feeling?
Yo, I'm feeling good. Just for everybody who wants to know, who's been following me on my Instagram stories, we are into our 60-day challenge, fitness challenge that I'm doing different workouts. So y'all pray for me and my patience and my strength as I do no carbs, no alcohol, eating clean, all that good stuff, trying to strive for no cheat days for 60 days on the road to my road to WrestleMania, because I'll be in Dallas in April, first week of April.
Nice.
So that's Yeah, so that's what I've been doing, training, doing the whole Hulk Hogan thing, eating my prayers, saying my prayers, eating my vitamins, all that good stuff. But yo, Soapbox Nation, make sure you follow us, Soapbox Podcast. That's Soapbox Podcast with 2X. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Hey, before we start, we got a lot of celebrity news, so y'all know what time it is with Just Say, hey. Take it away, Jose.
So congratulations are in order to my girl, TJ's future, Fenty, you know what I'm saying? We gonna congratulate baby girl because Rihanna,
boss.
Yes, your future boss. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Our future boss.
Oh,
she
okay.
is, yes. Rihanna is expecting her first child with rapper A$AP Rocky. And, a child is a blessing. It's a beautiful thing. I think that baby is going to be beautiful. I don't think they revealed what the gender is yet, but we're going to kick off this show by saying congratulations to them. It seems like there's something in the air. Everyone's getting pregnant these days. Alan, what do you got to say about that?
I knew that was going to come.
Oh, no. I mean, I just wanted to say that, as you guys seen the wonderful maternity pictures, that was taken on 125th. Of course, everybody has been congratulating Rihanna as they should. as they say, the black woman is the closest thing to God. She is going to deliver a baby into this earth. However, I have not heard anybody say congratulations to A$AP Rocky. You know, it takes two to tango. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like Rihanna's pregnant. A$AP Rocky is a footnote in the story, which, you know, we understand how the media works. But I would like to send my love and blessings to A$AP Rocky. This is going to be both their first child. So it's going to be a wonderful first-time experience for both of them. So I do want to go ahead and shout out A$AP Rocky and congratulate him as well. You know, with both of those people as big as a stature as they are, I'm sure this is something that they had to sit down and seriously talk about if they wanted to move forward. So shout out to Rihanna, shout out to A$AP Rocky. And more importantly, I just wanted to say that this is a win for Harlem. This is a win for Harlem. This is a win from Harlem Brothers. That baby is going to be from Harlem by default. You know what I'm saying? So Harlem in the building, we got one. You feel me? We bringing the Rihanna Fenty empire to 2/5 and Lex.
Yes.
So shout out to Harlem.
Well,
I love that.
Well, fun fact, Rihanna and I's family trees do cross. So we are in the same family tree. Her first cousin is the father of my niece. So yes, so she is in the intertwined, so to speak. You know, so you know, I accept Christmas, you know, prorated Christmas gifts. But yeah, is that A$AP Rocky? As far as the A$AP Rocky congratulations, is it the same A$AP Rocky that said all that Black Lives Matter stuff that's going on in Ferguson ain't got nothing to do with him? I think we did a podcast episode about that years ago. I don't know. I know people change, but is that the same guy? And then he wanted us to rally for him when he got locked up overseas. Is that the same guy?
Well, I've never heard.
I don't know if it's the same. It's the same A$AP Rocky. I'm supposed to congratulate.
I will say that I did not hear him. You know, there's a saying, dead man tell no tales. So, of course, of him not actually being physically dead, but he was in jail. He wasn't lobbying for us to do anything for him. But yes, A$AP Rocky does not have a spotless record. He has said what people would deem
derogatory,
insensitive things in the past. But you know, I do think that all of us have done the same with a little bit less of a spotlight, as well as less of an obligation.
Absolutely.
What I will say is that I do know that I trust in growth as a person who has done so. I also trust that Rihanna is extremely smart of a woman, and knowing that she is carrying this brother's seed into the world, and how long that they've known each other and how long that they've grown with each other, I think that she has a good spirit of discernment. So I am going to give, if nobody, even if you don't want to give Rocky the benefit of the doubt, I would say at least give Rihanna the benefit of the doubt that they've had these conversations, because she's built her brand, especially her beauty brand, on inclusivity. So I wouldn't think that she would overlook that in her personal life.
I forgot.
Like you said, Alan, growth is the thing, TJ.
I forgot about the brand thing.
Yeah, you know,
congrats, A$AP. Congrats. I support you and your the baby. So congrats.
Oh my goodness. He got Rihanna on his arm, so he got a good influence. And you know, they say like when you have the right people in your lives, they can really help you, you know, to grow and be better. And you know, she's probably like a very positive influence on him. And I like what you said, Alan. We do have to give congratulations to him also, because it's both of them that are having the baby. So congratulations also to A$AP Rocky.
Indeed. Children are the blessings of the world. We indeed. Yo, what's going on? What's popping with Nick Cannon? Speaking of baby news, what's going on with Nick Cannon?
He have another baby. Go ahead, tell him, Alan.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure. First off, I don't even like this picture I got of my man right here.
Right.
I will say that.
Hey, take it up with the producer.
I'm that Nick Cannon is the joke. The jokes do fly. But yes, this week Nick Cannon is having his 8th baby with another young lady. Now, a lot of controversy, a couple of layers of controversy went because Nick Cannon recently went on his show and said how after speaking to his therapist, he decided to go celibate. So to clear things up, he stated that the celibacy did happen after he found out the efficacy of his 8 children. He's only making the announcement now that they're expecting soon. So currently Nick Cannon is in his celibate state, but you know what they say, 8th time is a charm. But I would like to bring a little bit of
that's when you know some hoeing going on. Whenever they hit you on, whenever they hit you with the, oh, I'm celibate right now, that's mean they just got through with a whole bunch of hoeing, and they think that the duration of the celibacy is supposed to like retro pay their HOFAX. Your HOFAX is your HOFAX.
Listen, at the end of the day, people do use sex as a coping mechanism to deeper issues, which is something that we can get into later. But I think another conversation that the masses are having is the responsibility of Nick Cannon. A lot of people are debating whether it is completely irresponsible of him to continue having this village, or is it responsible based upon how the mothers feel and the relationship that they have. We can't say that out of all of the mothers of his children, we haven't heard any of them going public with any ill words towards Nick Cannon. And we can't necessarily say that's only because he's rich, because rich people always get in public beefs with their the mother of their children as well. So there is some sort of communication going on, I would assume. But I want to kick it to you guys, my co-hosts. Do you think what he's doing is irresponsible, or do you feel if it is responsible based upon a relationship that he has with the mother of these children?
I have a question. Yeah. I don't think he's being irresponsible as long as he's taking care of his responsibilities. But I do want to point out the double standard in which this story is. Nick Cannon is having his 8th child and he has multiple baby mamas, right? Shout out to Nick Cannon. Love wilding out. You know, this dude, for all intents and purposes, is a really nice dude. However, if this was a black woman or a black woman celebrity and this news was to come out, they would be getting a lot more heat and backlash for having multiple baby fathers and being on their 8th child, regardless of if they can take care of them. So I did want to point out the fact that, just like how Jesse pointed out when we talked about A$AP Rocky and Rihanna and the pregnancy, how everybody just congratulated Rihanna, but nobody really, they left A$AP Rocky out. In turn, in this regard with Nick Cannon, it's like everybody's like, yo, Nick got another child, whatever. He's still looked upon as like desirable. And that's what my question was going to be to really the ladies. It's like, does having 8 children with multiple baby mamas make him less desirable as a partner?
And also, I would like to, and I'm sorry, before you ladies interject, just a little bit of pushback here. I also think that this is an interesting way. I think it's interesting that you do see it like that, because from what I've been seeing on social media, Nick Cannon has been getting cooked by women as irresponsible. He's spreading his seed around. Like, they've been really hard on him for about 4 babies now. So I do think it's interesting that
4 babies.
So I think it's interesting that in your perspective, you don't think that that's how it's being presented.
I haven't seen it that much.
Yeah, so ladies, definitely. I would love to hear you guys' answer to that question. Both, like, 1, how do you view him, and 2, definitely if you feel if it's a double standard going on.
Giovanni, what do you think?
Hallelujah.
Jay?
She might be muted.
Okay,
yes. So is there a double standard? Absolutely. There's always going to be a double standard, because men in society, for example, and I'm not saying that Nick Cannon is a hoe, because that's not how I view him, but it's okay for a man to be a hoe, for lack of a better word. But if a woman is more promiscuous and she decides to do the same exact thing that a man is doing, she's looked at a different way. They put her down. She's perceived as a hoe. Yeah. It's obviously not the same standard. So there definitely is a double standard. But what I will say is, going back to what Alan said, I also did see the comments of women coming for him. I think, like, as society grows and women are like becoming like more empowered and, you know, more comfortable with who they are, they are like, you know, calling men out. Like the same way that you're gonna come for a woman and call her a hoe, that's exactly how we're gonna perceive you too. And I did see the comments. I did see a lot of people bashing him. I think on his show he did like kind of compare, like, or not compare, but he discussed like his new child. I mean, yeah, his new child, and then also like the passing of his baby, as you guys know, who recently passed away. And then he issued like an apology for that, you know, basically saying that he was apologetic for not respecting like the privacy and stuff, and he didn't need to like compare it in a way where people are going to get offended. But I definitely did see the comments of like people coming at him. Now I wouldn't say, me personally, I guess I have a bias when it comes to this stuff, as you guys know. I don't know if I can say it makes him less desirable, but like me personally, I guess like if I was in this, it's hard for me to speak on this. I have a huge bias. I wouldn't say that it makes him. I mean, I wouldn't say that it makes him less desirable. But at the same time, it's like I honestly I can't talk on this topic. I really can't.
Well, I think, and this is what I said, right? I stated that if he was a guy who was a deadbeat, right, and that was public knowledge, then that would be, I think that would be different.
That's different. Absolutely.
From what I know, and from what has been on social media, whatever, people are just upset about him just having multiple baby mamas and them being okay with it. But he's always at the photo shoot, the gender reveal photo shoot. He seems like he's pretty active, and he takes care of his kids. So, I mean, I don't think it can be too bad.
You know, but that's because of like people's perception, obviously, or like how people personally view like having kids and like marriage. Like some people think that you should be married before you have kids. Some people think that you should only have one baby mom or one baby dad, and you know, have this traditional home where you guys are married or you guys are together and you only have one mom and one dad. But obviously, like that's changing, you know, drastically, as you can see, like with Nick Cannon's situation. And that's not only Nick Cannon. I think like Future, for example, he has multiple baby moms and baby dads. And you brought up a good point. Like if you're taking care of your responsibilities, like I get the whole like, you know, I get like the norm, right? The norm is to have only like maybe like one mother of your child, one father of your child, and that's like what people are used to. And like I'm sure like a lot, I mean, me personally, if I'm speaking from personal preference, that's what I would have wanted. I wanted to be married. I wanted to only have, I always viewed my life as being married, having one baby dad, for lack of a better word, and like raising my multiple kids with like that one person. But in my situation, that's not really how it worked out for me. I was in long-term relationships. You know, I will say, because you guys already know, I'm gonna embrace like who I am. But me personally, I have 3 kids and they all have different dads. Now, does that make me a hoe? No, I don't think that makes me a hoe, because in every single one of those relationships, I was in a committed relationship. I was even engaged once. And these were people that I was like in love with. Now, could I have done things differently? Sure. But this just shows that like nobody's perfect. And like, yes, you can make better decisions, but that doesn't make you a bad person. And like, if you're taking care of your responsibilities and the father is taking care of their responsibilities and you guys have a good relationship and the kids are happy, the kids are healthy, then why is there such a negative stigma on having multiple baby dads or baby mamas? Like, I get it. Like some people do deliberately like go out there and do that like purposely for whatever reason, I don't know. But there are people who don't do that purposely, and they do things, you know, and sometimes that's not what they would want to happen, but it happens. And I don't feel like, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish. I don't just want to present to you, because a point that both of you guys have made is, you know, from what you guys are hearing, and this possibility that he could still be a wonderful parent, you know, despite the value. But there are people who believe that it's impossible to give 8 children in 8 different households the attention that they need as a second parent. That people say that it's impossible for them to be the best parent that he could be, because he has split his time so thin with already a Hollywood, you know, career. And if you're having 8 children in multiple households, you're not going to be able to make every event. You're not going to be able to take 8 children to school every day, et cetera, et cetera. So do you feel that, do you feel that there's a cap on how good of a parent he could be just due to the value?
No, I don't. And like I said, unless you're in that situation, like you don't know, there's definitely a possibility for him to be there for every single child evenly. Like obviously, probably there are going to be certain circumstances where he's probably going to miss some events, but that happens with married parents. How many married parents have a busy work life and they can't even make it to like one game? Like if their kids are in sports, like there's definitely I'm sorry, no, I don't agree with that. Like I feel like he can still be there for all 8 kids in the way that they're going to need him to be there. Like is he going to be able to be there all the time? I don't know, but maybe he will, maybe he won't. But I don't feel like just because he has 8 different kids with 8 different baby moms is going to make him less of a dad or like a good dad. And I just feel like
let's get Giovanni. Giovanni, I know that you're here. The well said, just saying I definitely hear you. Let's get Giovanni. Giovanni, what do you think on the matter? Does this make him less desirable and for having 8 children with multiple baby mamas, and your commentary towards the stigma of having kids with multiple parents or different blended families, so to speak? Because that's what we're discussing in this topic.
I feel like I wouldn't date him.
Why is that?
And that's just because of what we're talking about, like the time and the attention. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't date him unless I knew for a fact that I would be the one. Like, hey, I got 8 baby mamas, but when I'm with you, I feel like you're my soulmate, and I want to get married. Yeah. But am I just gonna have a child by him? No, I would not do that. He would not be desirable to me in that way. But multiple children, I don't think that makes you any less desirable than anybody else. Now, if he was a deadbeat and had multiple children, yes, that is a different scenario. But I'm not gonna knock a man for having multiple kids, because I mean it's just a man, like, to be honest, like really it's just women that decided to keep the kids, because it's a whole bunch of men out here who could have multiple kids, but just not every woman is keeping their babies. So I just think that every woman that slept with Nick Cannon, of course, they're gonna keep his child because it's beneficial to keep that baby at that point. But I think about all the women who wanted to keep their kids but couldn't because they didn't have money, nor did the father. So I think babies are blessings to have, and my preference would be I would date him if he were to marry me. But other than that, I have no desire to just be having a child with anybody. Like, I don't have any desire for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna just like second what Jay said really quick. I think like she made a good point. Like, if I were to be with someone who had like 7 baby moms already, I wouldn't want to just have a baby with them. Like, if I'm having a baby with you, it's because like we're gonna get, like, I'm sure about us, I'm secure about us, like we're gonna get married, or we have plans to get married, or like she said, you're my soulmate. So I feel like, yes, like it doesn't make you less desirable, but if you're just trying to make me your baby mom, then yeah, I'm not with that. So I agree with like what Jay's saying.
Yes, and let's get Soapbox Nations chiming in. Lisa says, I think the majority of people with multiple baby moms/dads are usually a result of relationships where you thought it was for the long haul and doesn't make anyone any less than they are. Well, yeah, some people agree with that. Some people don't. I don't think you should think any less of people. I mean, things happen. There are people who are widows, right? If you're in a marriage and then you become a widow, and then next thing you know, you get remarried, or you have a child, or you have a child young, and then so I don't think there's any less. I definitely think it's a preference. I don't think anybody who says, hey, I'm not going to date anybody with kids, I don't think they're necessarily wrong. And I don't think anybody who's like, hey, I'm going to have multiple dictating to people how many children they have. I think that's pretty, invasive. And the caveat is
And
he's taking care of his kids. If he wasn't, this is a completely different topic.
I agree.
But but I know we're gonna switch topics soon, but I feel like when people sometimes when they associate this, like as far as like, oh, how many kids, just the kids that you have. And I don't know, I just feel like the kids is just an extension of what really took place in the bedroom. So whether a person have 8 kids or not, and a person has 0 kids, it doesn't mean that the person with 8 kids slept with more people than the person with 0 kids. It's just that the person who don't have no kid, the person who just doesn't have any kids, they just don't have any kids. But it doesn't mean like, oh, one person is sleeping around and have multiple partners. Like, and I hate that they try to, make it seem like that, like the world places that on women too. Like, oh, when you have children, you just you thing out there, stuff like that. And it's just like that is not the case. There's multiple women out here who don't have any kids and has lost count with the amount of men that they slept with. So it's just like it don't really matter. Like the kids are just an extension of what took place in the bedroom. But so I'm never knocking nobody for that.
Right.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that, and we could definitely revisit this topic as far as like children stuff. That was really good. I appreciate everybody's commentary. I did want to share a story with you all, right? And this has to do with this week's hottest story, which was, really groundbreaking, which was former head coach Brian Flores, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL, the Denver Broncos, the York's New York Giants, and there was another team. Denver Broncos, New York Giants, and the Miami Dolphins. And he is claiming and wants to bring to the forefront that there is racial disparities among hiring NFL black coaches in the NFL. Currently, right now, in the NFL, there's only one black head football coach in the NFL. And his name is Mike Tomlin, and he coaches for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now, the NFL is 70% African-American players. However, there's only one NFL black head coach, as I mentioned, and there's seldom any GMs. I think they just got hired 2 GMs, and the Vikings and the Bears are black GMs. There are no black owners. And so now the controversy is about how Brian Flores found out about it. But before I talk about it, I want you guys to give me the latitude to share a story. I remember I believe it was in 2014, I went to an interview in the organization, I'm going to say it was United Against Poverty in Orlando, Florida. It was a position for an outreach coordinator. Just came out, FAMU, had my credentials, had my resume, had the experience, and I was really excited, juiced up for the interview. I walked into the interview and I interviewed with a guy named Eric Gray, right? Who was there? I think he was there. Well, he was the guy conducting interviews. He was a higher up. When I walked into that interview, I sat down, and before I said anything, Eric Gray told me, you're not going to get the job, but you're more than welcome to stay as long as you want. He gave me some Christian book that they had, and then proceeded to ask me at the time about FAMU and their hazing scandal. Right? And this week, that story, or my experience with that, it really came to a head, and I really thought about that for this reason. And I asked the question on my social media, how many times have African Americans who are gone into an interview, and upon going to the interview, during the course of the interview, you realize that this interview is just to check a box. this interview was not, they were never seriously considering me as an actual candidate, although I am overqualified for the position. I say that to say in correlation to the Brian Flores story. Brian Flores found out that he was never really a candidate for these positions for a coaching hire for the New York Giants, because he is alleging, or this is through text message, head coach Bill Belichick on the right-hand side of the New England Patriots texts Brian, hey, congratulations. And these are the text messages, right? He texts Brian saying, hey, congratulations. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Text him congratulations, saying that, I heard you're going to get the job. I just want to reach out to you. Bill Belichick has relationships in the league. Just says, want to say congratulations. Only thing is, Brian, Coach Belichick was texting Brian, but he was texting Brian Flores, who is a black head coach. But he thought he was texting Brian Daboll, who is the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and who is a white head coach, and he had already gotten the job. So you're thinking, oh man, he probably just got it mixed up. There's no harm, no foul. As Bill Belichick said, sorry, I fucked this up. I double checked and I misread the text. I think they are naming Daboll. I'm sorry about that. Very apologetic. You may think, oh, no harm, no foul, didn't get the job. However, the problem is Brian Flores didn't even interview with the New York Giants yet. So before he sat down for dinner and interviewed with the Giants organization, he was told by another NFL head coach that they had already made a decision before he got in there. Let me break it down further. The reason why this is, you may think, okay, well, all right, sometimes things like that happen, whatever. However, the NFL in 2003 implemented the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule is supposed to be a rule to increase and give more opportunities for African-American, or more specifically minority head coaches, to get hired, to get interviews. Because at this point, African-Americans in the NFL, the black coaches weren't even getting in the door. They weren't getting these opportunities, right? So now the Rooney Rule was placed in 2003. I checked. In 2003, the NFL had 3 black coaches. So the NFL made a policy change in order to increase black coaches. And now in 2022, NFL has 1 black coach. This is why Brian Flores decided enough is enough, and he is going to file a class action lawsuit against the NFL and those club organizations that are specifically mentioned. The significance of this is that it's not just a lawsuit to just recuperate damages. It's a class action lawsuit which allows other coaches, players, personnel to join in on the lawsuit. Now, what is Brian Flores? You may say, okay, for those who didn't watch, what is he alleging? Not only is he alleging that he was participated in sham of an interview, but he also was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins and was unceremoniously fired this season after having a winning streak, after going 1-7 and having a long winning streak, and then was let go. Everybody thought it was odd when the news broke. However, Brian, it came out in the lawsuit that he is alleging, right? And this is what the lawsuit alleges, that the owner, Stephen Ross, offered to pay Brian Flores $100,000 to lose games in order to lose games in the NFL in order to get in a better position to get a higher draft pick, because the worst records get the higher draft picks get the best players, and they wanted the quarterback that is coming out. Subsequently, the quarterback, Joe Burrow, that's coming out, that's going to be in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, who plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. So this whole thing has been a whirlwind of whoa. But why I really wanted to talk about this, not necessarily because of the implications of black head coaches and this and Brian Flores specifically, I wanted to talk about, and that's why we named this episode what it is. It's called Blackball. Because a lot of people now are making the correlation between Colin Kaepernick and Brian Flores, right? Brian Flores, immediately when he filed that lawsuit, and he stated this on affiliates CBS and MSNBC, ESPN, he stated he knew by filing this lawsuit that he has potentially sacrificed his NFL coaching career, because he knows, similar to a Colin Kaepernick going against the NFL, everybody, even though it's retaliation, right? If this actually does happen, they know that there's going to be a stigma, and nobody's going to want to work with him because, one, he went all in when he shared the text messages about Bill Belichick. He went all in by filing this lawsuit and making it public, and then doing a media tour as well. So this is a huge story when it comes to the NFL. But I also want to say, when it comes to when he filed this, the significance of him filing it on February 1st, the very first day of Black History Month. What's important for us to know about Brian Flores off the bat, whether it's his allegations are substantiated in the court of law or anything, is that Brian Flores has the courage that freed our ancestors. And what I mean by that is, in order for you to make change, those who are disruptors, as Brian Flores, as a Colin Kaepernick, any sort of revolutionary, the disruptors seldom reap the benefits of their own sacrifice. And this is why what he is doing is so big and so honorable, because it's opening the doors, not just for him, because he may not be able to walk through it. He's opening the doors for other Black coaches, other Black personnel, GMs and stuff who precede him, who succeed him, and give opportunity forward. So for what I know, the next step in this situation is the NFL's, of course, responded. Stephen Ross said that the NFL said that these are baseless claims and they have no merit. Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, said that these are baseless and he is going to fully cooperate. The other caveat to this as well, when you look at Stephen Ross and the allegations levied against him, it's because if you're an owner, an NFL owner, and you are allegedly paying a coach to lose games to give you a better draft position, then you are affecting the integrity of the game. This affects gambling. This is stuff that kept Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame. When we talked about Barry Bonds and Dope Deal last week, Alan, this is what kept Barry Bonds. It's the integrity of the game. And so there's a lot of implications, but there also, when I listen to this story, the NFL, I shared my testimony with that because I understand that the NFL is a microcosm of white corporate America. We have all, and I would say most Black people, Black Americans, Black people have experienced, we live in a system of global white supremacy. So we understand that when we go to a job, it's not just a job. We don't have that privilege as white folks do. When we go to a job, the job is a responsibility. The responsibility of not just the people that are on the job or where you came from, but anybody else who also wants an opportunity. And so to jeopardize or to sacrifice his NFL career to bring forth this conversation, I think is extremely noble. It's courageous, and we should all pay attention. And it's actually mathematically impossible for the league to be 70% African American and then not have, and then only to have one African American head coach. What they're saying is And we talk about blackness, and we're talking about being blackballed from not just the league or gaining access to things. What it says is that these black coaches are not qualified to be leaders of men. These black coaches are to be understudies, but they're not good enough to lead. This is the same type of narrative that they use with quarterbacks, saying that black quarterbacks weren't smart enough to articulate the game. They weren't. So we continuously have to break barriers. And so similar to Colin Kaepernick, Brian Flores has sacrificed himself for the greater good of what could possibly be. And I think that's courageous. So from there, I'll open up to y'all. What are y'all initial thoughts?
I'll start with saying that, first off, a big salute to Brian Flores. Much respect. I don't think that it is of any coincidence that he filed this and made it public on February 1st. He is a young guy. He's 40 years old. And not only is he young, 40 years old, everybody understood that this gentleman was going to get another shot at coaching sooner than later. If it wasn't this offseason, which it wasn't going to be, it would have been next offseason. This was highly understood. In fact, I know that there was a couple of more other opportunities that he was looking to possibly get in Chicago, from my understanding. So the league was on notice, and they knew how good of a coach he was. And there was no doubt in anyone's mind that he was going to get another shot at a head coaching job. And I'm sure Brian is not naive to that, but he felt that the urgency of this situation was more important than his personal gain. So, I thought that was extremely, extremely noble because, we coaches are extremely expendable. I would say that coaches are more expendable than quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. A shout out to our brother Colin Kaepernick. I do think that a part of what Colin Kaepernick thought was, at the end of the day, his talent level would kind of carry him above the criticism. And he didn't necessarily realize how expendable he was. A part of him, I'm sure, thought that and knew he was expendable, but probably not to the extent that he found out he was. Coaches come 2 dimes a dozen in the league. So Brian Flores knows that he's even more expendable than that. And so for him to put that on the line is extremely, extremely courageous. Now, what I will say is that in regards to the Rooney Rule, this is not the only time that a black head coach was going to be interviewed as a formality. We really see this almost every offseason, because from the time that the season is ending to the offseason, these organizations already have their eye on who they would like the next coach to be. They're looking at offensive coordinators. Sometimes they're interviewing them in playoffs. Sometimes they already have a guy in the pipeline from college. And we've seen plenty of times where as the season's over, essentially, it's known within the public media person is going to be the next coach. And I do think the unfortunate thing is with the Rooney Rule is that it does allow our minority coaches to kind of waste their head time dealing with formalities. And essentially that's what this situation was. So he was just brought in as a formality to deal with this rule, but they already had this probably before the season ended. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in regards to that, which I do think that has to be looked at a little bit different because it's obviously not working as intended. So, I just wanted to kind of salute Brian Flores for making, pretty much the ultimate sacrifice, for lack of a better term, when it comes to sport. He's going to get another opportunity. I know there's a new league, I think it's the UFL or UAFL. There's a new football league coming out next year that I'm sure he'll have an opportunity to coach in, if not being put on someone else's staff in the interim, But that's not somebody that no owner is going to want to deal with, for lack of a better term, right?
Mhm.
Once you put your nuts on the table like that,
Yeah.
Owners have to go ahead and sign off on these coaches, and no, it's going to be hard for someone. They're going to be scared of him now, as they should. When the truth walk in the room, a lot get real quiet. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to Brian Flores. I'm going to be watching this very, very closely. I really am interested to see. I think not only the Rooney Rule is going to change with this, I think it's a possibility if they're able to prove that the tanking thing was incentivized monetarily. I also do believe Hugh Jackson may have chimed in and kind of said that this is something that was going on in Cleveland. I think this may change the way that the draft is even carried on. It may not be based on record. They may have to go to a lotto system, I was hearing, because that is the ultimate betrayal. I mean, everybody knows if a player were to do that, it would be absolutely no questions. He would be out of the league. So with the owners and with all of the PR that the NFL has been trying to do the last 2 to 3 years, trying to cover their sins, this is the last thing that they need. So, listen, pull a sheet up, man. Pull a sheet up. Burn it all down if we got to burn it all down, So shout out to Brian Flores.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one of my another point that I wanted to make is that this idea, right, that just any black person will do, right? And so that's the problem with the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule just says, hey, just any minority coach, right? Any minority coach, you can go ahead and just interview, and that should suffice it. So what we're getting now is there's a difference, and I want everybody to understand, right? There's a difference between opportunity and tokenism, right? Opportunity is something that you have earned because of your merit, because of your credentials. You have earned that opportunity, right? And I know that people say, well, you should earn the opportunity without having to include race. If you're thinking like that, please shut up and go tune out and go somewhere else. That's not the case, right? Because when you are purposely saying we're not going to even allow you to compete, you're not giving an opportunity, right? Because they're not giving an opportunity on an equal playing field, right? So when you're seeing that tokenism is, well, they said that we have to interview a black head coach, so we're going to just pick any black head coach. So if you're a black person, we're just going to go ahead and interview you just to suffice the rule, and then we're just going to go ahead and hire who the hell we want anyway, right? That's that whole good old boy system that needs to change. And everybody knows that it's been going on, but it still persists in the NFL among head coaches. And it's hard. Let's be honest. These owners are up there, right? People are, like I said, the NFL is a microcosm of how corporate America runs. When you are a older white gentleman or an older white man, right? You are obviously going to try to hire someone who more than likely you identify with. In your interviews, you're going to hire that personnel, right? And that's why they are hiring more so people who they identify with. It's because, hey, I'm a white guy or whatever, I'm going to hire. Now, granted, the problem is with Stephen Ross of the Dolphins had a black GM and Brian Flores was a black head coach. The problem is once you bring in a black coach, now we have to deal with what do you got to deal with once you get in there? I don't know how many black people have done that, but sometimes being the first of anything or breaking that glass ceiling as a African American, you go through more hell. Because once you're in there, now you got to deal with all the inter-office politics and the bureaucracy that you're dealing with. So now it looks like, right, based upon the allegations of Brian Flores, it now looks like, hey, you got a black GM, you got a black coach into your organization. It looks like now you as the owner, this white rich owner, wanted the black coach to take a dive for the team so you could get better draft picks. And because you didn't have a puppet, a token puppet who was just going to do your bidding, you got rid of him.
Mm.
That is the problem. That is a problem that people are now looking at. That's not real. That's not real opportunities. And there's, on the flip side, there's plenty of people, because I know there's people who are going to say, well, and I've heard this. I know, Alan, you've heard this. Jesse, you probably heard this. Giovanni, you've heard this too. Well, the black players should just go ahead and just start their own league. And everybody should just boycott. And then if we start our own league, the whole system will crumble. In theory, yes. In theory, yes. But we all know a lot of these, sometimes the money and your class that you're in, a lot of people come from impoverished backgrounds who will make it to the NFL. Like I said, there's courage in blackness, right? In being not just unapologetic, there's courage in being unapologetically black and standing up, right? So a lot of these players are not going to sacrifice a lot. Their lifelines, they got all these people counting on them. They're not going to put themselves up there. That's why what Brian Flores did is so courageous, because a lot of players are going to sit back and be like, hey, that ain't my issue. They're going to do the ASAP Rocky. Hey, that ain't got nothing to do with me. I got my stuff going on here. That's why people who say, oh, they should just go ahead and boycott the NFL and the whole league and the whole system will crumble. Yeah, and that speaks to there's a book called $1 Million Slaves. It's talking about the NFL and the structure and the correlations between the plantation and the NFL. Just because they're getting absorbed amount of money to play a sport doesn't mean that they're not controlled. And a lot of these athletes are not financially literate because years later they all either get in debt, and you hear stories about people using them and stuff. So there also needs to be more work done in the NFL for more financial literacy for those NFL players. But that's another topic for another day. Yeah, I think we should watch this story. And I think it's, like I said, it's extremely courageous, but it also speaks to how things work, not just in the NFL. It's only amplified in the NFL because there's 32 teams. You can notice it. You're like, wait a minute, why are all the labor, 70% black, but then all the executives, there's predominantly white? You're seeing it. But all throughout corporate America, this happens. Nepotism. How many times you're like, man, I interviewed for a job, or man, you're on the job and you're doing good, you're progressing. You think, man, I should get a raise or a promotion and stuff. And then you got the boss's nephew or somebody that got a hookup, or somebody. Like, I see a lot of this in the political space. When we were organizing in Tallahassee for, with Obama for America, you have organizers who's been in Tallahassee for years, right? As sophomores, juniors, seniors, right? Organizing in the community, Tallahassee, and on FAMU's campus and at Florida State. However, when you got into the campaign office, all of the neighborhood leads, or all of the leads who were over the staff or the volunteer staff, they were freshmen. They were freshmen, white students from Florida State. So it was the lack of opportunity. So it's like blackness has always been, we have always been categorized as labor. You can jump high, run faster, but anytime you have an opinion, anytime you try to get out of line, anytime you try to do anything out of the norm or to break the status quo of a system of white supremacy, you are classified as a disruptor, and therefore you are subject to be blackballed. The minute that he filed that lawsuit, everyone who was on the sports media circuit took a collective sigh and said, man, he sacrificed his whole career. Right? So they don't love you. Like, everybody looks at Muhammad Ali. When you look at Muhammad Ali, everybody's like, oh man, they parade him around. He was at the Olympics and everything with the torch. They didn't love Muhammad Ali back then. They couldn't stand Muhammad Ali. They thought he was loud, he was brash. They didn't like him until his later years, until he was really, he couldn't talk because of his condition. So, I just want everyone who's looking at this to not just this story with Brian Flores, don't just look at it as, oh, that's him. And I think a lot of times we do that. We look at discrimination and we look at whether it's racism and discrimination, and we say that's an individual problem. That's their problem, right? That's what they're dealing with. Until the discrimination and the racism is on your doorstep,
right?
Let's check in. Let's chime in with Soapbox Nation. We have live music lovers. Shout out to you. Thank you for joining the Soapbox podcast. He says that's why he did a class action, because you can't blackball 50 coaches. Hopefully people step up. Yep. Let's hope they do step up. And he said 2 other coaches stepped up so far. I don't have those names, but if they did, it would be pretty interesting to see. It was a little tongue in cheek, but it was also true. Bill Belichick's text message. Bill Belichick is one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time. Correct, Alan? But his text message that says, hey, I effed up. I text the wrong person, which is he's an older man. The one that says, sorry, I fucked this up. I double checked and I misread the text. That needs to be on a plaque. If Brian Flores' lawsuit is substantiated in the court of law, that text message needs to be on a plaque, because that is the most significant text message in NFL history. It needs to be on a plaque in Canton, Ohio.
And you know what? Because he could have easily just could have wiggled out of that and be like, yeah, man, that's what I'm hearing, and just not said nothing. And then when he didn't get hired, be like, shit, bro, damn, that's what the streets was saying.
And he was like, nah.
He was like, nah, I'll fuck this up. This ain't even about you. I do get your hopes up.
I do
shout out to him.
Yeah, I do feel like it's weird because Bill Belichick can decipher offenses and coordinators and offenses and defensive schemes, and he's been coaching for so long. But he can't tell between the 2 Brians in his text message phone. That's just, like, you ever see those commercials, those progressive commercials where they talk about don't act like your parents? Like, that's like a uh-oh moment. Like, he really was probably on his phone like, what the hell?
Hey, listen, that 70-year-old came out.
He was like, look, I got a lot of shit going on. But let me ask you this. Just say, knowing this news, and it's not a trick question, I'm going to ask Soapbox Nation. Hearing this news, right? Because let's pivot a little bit. We now have the Super Bowl coming up. In this Super Bowl, remember, Jay-Z was supposed to get the seat at the table, and he was supposed to make everything okay. And then we got, who's performing at the Super Bowl halftime show? Eminem? Is it Eminem? Is it Snoop? It's Kendrick? It's
Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige. So it's mostly an LA lineup with the exception of Mary J. Blige and Eminem. So it's like almost like an aftermath Dr. Dre lineage. And ironically enough, it's the Super Bowl is going to be it's right outside LA, technically Inglewood, California.
So
you think they're gonna go ahead?
Well, my question, I'm gonna give you the floor, just say. My question, shout out to Lisa. She said texting without glasses. Look, I've been there. I done sent the wrong text messages. Good thing it was, look, I ain't gonna go there. I'm gonna be professional. I sent some wrong text messages back in my younger years. Back in my younger years. But I do want to ask, and I'll give you the floor. Just say, will this lawsuit? Do you think that this lawsuit will have an impact on viewership for the Super Bowl? Do you think, because similar to Colin Kaepernick, do you think now that people are more aware of what's going on and the fact that there's a lack of black coaches, do you think that people will say, you know what, I ain't watching the Super Bowl this year? It's the Bengals and the Rams. I ain't watching that. Or better yet, maybe or do you think the halftime show folks should be like, nah, and take a stand?
I don't know, honestly, but what I will say is that possibly maybe people who have a strong opinion on it, maybe they won't watch the game per se.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll tune into the Super Bowl show just to see if those black performers maybe make a statement. I know that there was like some years back, right? I believe it was Beyonce who did like a Super Bowl performance that was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, my brain's not working.
Controversial.
Yes.
Pro-black.
And Yes, because I did my whole my undergrad paper on that whole performance.
You
And
did
I'm
your
wondering,
paper on
like,
Beyonce?
on the performance, yes, I did.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if like people will tune in just to see if they kind of like make some sort of statement to like basically back up like Colin Kaepernick and Brian Flores. I'm curious. Maybe they might tune in for that. I feel like some people will still watch it just to watch it because, you know, there's Super Bowl parties and they're just gonna go just to attend. And, you know, even though there is a bigger picture, sometimes that will be overshadowed by the entertainment aspect of it. And I feel like there are some people who are probably gonna be like, fuck this, like I'm not watching it. Like I'm not watching it because there is a bigger picture. So I'm conflicted. I don't really know. Like me personally, I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I think it was last year. I didn't like care for it. But like I know that if I go to like a Super Bowl party, I'll probably watch it, you know, just watch it. Me personally, unless the Giants or the Jets are playing or even the Patriots, because I live in New England, I really don't really care for it. I'll watch the performance. If I watch it, I'm watching it for the Super Bowl performance. So me personally, I'm gonna watch it just to see if a statement is made, if you know they do something within those performances. I do want to commend Brian Flores for doing what he did and standing up with this lawsuit. Shout out to Bill Belichick, however you say his name. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
For sending that text message and, you know, being like, oh, I fucked up because, yeah, you sure did, buddy. I do feel like a lot of people might feel, you know, more reserved as far as like stepping up because, like you said, they can potentially be blackballed. Because even like with Colin Kaepernick, when that whole thing happened, like there were people who were like standing behind him and they were kneeling, but then if you did that, you were going to get fined, right? If I'm not mistaken. And there were repercussions. So I feel like maybe some people won't because they're afraid of the repercussions. And if you're financially stable and that's where your income is coming from and that's what you're relying on, then you're probably going to be like more, you know, not receptive to like, you know, standing up for the cause, even though you do stand up for the cause. But as far as like the Super Bowl goes, I don't know. I feel like some people would just watch it just to watch it, but still have his back. And some people will be like, yeah, no, I'm not watching it.
Listen, a lot of this has a lot to do with New York. And I hold Alan responsible because Alan told me that Jay-Z was going to make things better. That's what Alan told me. I'm sure there's tape of it. He told me Jay-Z is going to make things better. The NFL had end racism in the end zone. Stop hating the end zone. And then the New York Giants, which is Alan's team, by the way. I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah, Jessica's too.
Yes. So, you know, Alan, let me ask Alan, does this give you a bad taste in your mouth as far as the Giants organization? Are you going to denounce your team for their missteps?
Well, the funny thing is,
what's up, Morgan? How you doing? Long time.
Morgan.
Hey, side note. No, Morgan be on social media acting up, but we're gonna have to get her on the show to talk about that. I don't know if y'all was aware. But hey, Morgan.
So it depends. It depends on who you want to place your blame on. Like the announcement that the coach, Mr. DeBall, the announcement actually had came out that the Giants were going to hire him, like publicly, before we had finished all of our rounds of interview.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
So it already came out. But like I said, this is not an anomaly. This isn't the first time it happened. It literally happens every offseason. Like every single team has their list of candidates. They have one person that they're really trying to get, and if they can't get them, then they'll move forward. So I saw Brian DeBall was already anointed. Dable, pardon me. Yeah. Mr. Dable was appointed the head coach, and I didn't even really think about the Rooney rule. So the Rooney rule, pardon me. So it depends. You can blame the NFL for having this formality in place, or you can blame the organization. I'm sure both sides are to blame. In regards to people boycotting the Super Bowl, outside of the owner, like incentivizing the coach with monetary gains for possibly tanking. And honestly, I think that's the biggest news within all of this. To be honest,
then let's be truthful about it.
I think that, and the only reason I say that is because nothing else is new information. So if you choose to boycott because a lawsuit is being filed, then that just means that you haven't been paying attention, because nothing that he's alleging in this lawsuit in regards to the way that the Rooney Rule works is new information. Everybody knows the formality process is. So I think I don't want to call it fake outrage, but it could be a little bit performative if this is the thing that makes you boycott the NFL, because I've stated there's nothing really new about this race-wise. Now, the incentivization of tanking, that's a little bit different. But I would be a little bit shocked if none of let's put the onus. I would be a little bit shocked if Kendrick doesn't symbolize something in regards to solidarity.
Do you bring him on stage? They should bring him on stage.
Bring who? Brian Flores?
Brian. I'll bring Brian Flores on stage. Give him 2 minutes.
Listen, they're gonna, if they see him by the stadium, the NFL is gonna jazzy Jeff him out. They're gonna jazzy Jeff him out that joint. But I would be interested to see if during the halftime performance there's any sort of symbolism or anything in regards to this. But I don't think I necessarily.
I think the question is, does the NFL do a Black History Month commercial? You know how every year they do one of those Black History Month commercials?
Of course.
They're gonna roll it out. Look, man, I think it's gonna be that awkward, that awkward silence. But listen, before we move on to the subject matter, because we definitely got to talk about Whoopi Goldberg and what's going on with her and The View and her suspension. Let's talk about Colin Kaepernick, right? We just mentioned Colin Kaepernick and the correlation with the NFL and his sacrifice. It is being reported that Colin Kaepernick, shout out to Colin Kaepernick, and we talk about New York, Colin Kaepernick and Spike Lee were at the Knicks game. I don't know why he did that to himself. Alan knows about that.
Watch it.
They were at the Knicks game. Spike Lee is always there. He ain't got nothing else to do. He's rich. So he's at the Knicks game with Spike Lee, chilling out, having a good time. Black History Month in full effect. I think this is the second day of Black History Month, if I'm not mistaken, second or third. So we off to a bang. Spike Lee has been named the director for Colin Kaepernick, is getting a documentary on ESPN. So shout out to him, and really capsulizing his experience with the NFL and all this in the protest and being blackballed. So shout out to Colin Kaepernick, shout out to Spike Lee. I'm glad that they got Spike Lee to do it. So now it's going to actually be done right, and it's going to be done correctly. Colin Kaepernick already has something on Netflix. He had another Netflix show. I didn't even get to watch it. I still need to make time to watch that. But I think this would be great. It's a good look, and it's also good to see Colin out here. And the fro is I'm jealous. As someone who's still trying to grow his hair, just seeing how easy that fro and how plush it is. I am jealous. But yeah, what do y'all think about that Colin Kaepernick documentary?
I watch it.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I don't have much.
Yeah, it's good.
Word. Oh, and speaking of, I would be remiss, all right, if we didn't mention this week. I don't have a picture of y'all. Just give me 1 sec as I stall. Here, we did have some news, and I know some Bostonians were pretty sad about this, as I was. I don't think I was a little sad. I was just kind of in disbelief. This week, Tom Brady retired.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady retired from the NFL after 22 seasons, and that's a big deal. Tom Brady is he's the all-time leader in passing yards, all-time leader in touchdowns. He only lost he lost the Super Bowl to Allen's New York Giants with Eli Manning at one point.
Twice. Twice.
Oh, you said you had a lot of pride with that. Did you know that the Giants have never had a black coach? I'm just saying the Giants have never had
twice we beat Thomas Brady in the Super Bowl.
Yes. So that was it. So Tom Brady is he is retired. So Godspeed, Tom Brady. Go do what you got to do. He's rich, and he's
and has a wife.
That's real dope. So good for him. He was like he released a statement after it was leaked that he was going to retire, but he did it on his own terms, went out his own way, and I think that also is commendable. Everybody should want to do that in life, to go out on their own terms, right? I just hope that whenever Jesse is through with this soapbox thing, that she is as classy and respectful. We just want a statement. If she's ever decides, I can't take this no more, just give us a
I'll let you know in advance.
Yes, please do. Please do. All right, our next story. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, there's another. Speaking of being blackballed, did y'all hear the story of Whoopi Goldberg? Whoopi Goldberg, y'all know Whoopi. She's a comedian, but she's also the host of The View. Whoopi Goldberg was suspended by The View for her comments. Suspended from The View. Yeah, she was suspended from The View. And I'm going to caution everybody, right? Because we are going to play the clip of Whoopi Goldberg's comments. Her comments are for editorial purposes, educational purpose, editorial purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the views of anybody on the podcast. We are simply want to listen to her commentary, and then we will give our commentary afterwards. All right. So with that being said, we are going to play the clip, and this is what Whoopi Goldberg, these were her comments, and she talked about the Holocaust.
It's about a different race. But it's not about race. It's not about race. What is it about? Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's about
it's not about ideal race. But these are two white groups of people.
Well, how do we have to black people
see them as white people? But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, Italian, everybody eats each other. So if you're uncomfortable, if you hear about mouse, should you be worried? Should your child say, oh my God, I wonder if that's me? No, that's not what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, I don't wanna be like that.
Well, hopefully. I want to be cool.
Yeah, most kids, they don't.
All right, I don't want to play too much of that, but yeah, Whoopi Goldberg was suspended because she said the Holocaust, right? The Holocaust, the event or tragedy was not about race. It was about humanity. So she was basically saying the Holocaust, all lives matter. And white folks was like, you can't say that. Not about this situation. You're not going to sit there and lump it all together, say it ain't just about race. It's about everything going on you can't do that. You can only say stuff like that when it comes to Black Lives Matter. You can't say that about this situation. So do you feel, based upon her comments, now that you've heard her comments, do you feel like her suspension was warranted? And I'll open the floor. I'll ask you, Soapbox Nation, but I'll get comments from my co-host. Do you feel like Whoopi Goldberg should have been suspended? Alan.
So admittedly, I probably don't have the bandwidth to kind of like speak on the lengths of which this may have been inaccurate. And I think that's probably the basis I would need to see what the punishment would or should be. I will say that I don't know from what I have understood that she has apologized for this after being educated on the root of the Holocaust, right? So, as a journalist, I do know that there's a very thin line between being inaccurate on purpose or inaccurate with the intent of hurting people or just willfully obtuse to make your point.
Yes, because she was wrong. She was wrong for what she said. Like, as far as like, she was actually like inaccurate, like historically inaccurate. Like, it was about race. Yes.
Right. So, in situations like that, you know, it's hard for me to kind of it's kind of hard for me to say should there be disciplinary action or should there be education action. You know, I think that's a conversation to be had if the other person is willing to have that conversation, because you know I do feel that there's two ways to go about it. You know, you can, if a person's willing to have that conversation, then maybe that could be publicized. You know, and if they just feel as if possibly the community needs a break from that person because of the hurt that they've caused, then you know that will be a decision that would have to come from someone who's in that community, which I'm not. So I try not to, you know, act like I am and act like I know the effects of someone, you know, those comments personally. So,
well, I do think that Whoopi Goldberg herself actually, because she changed her last name, she actually does identify as Jewish. So, you know, maybe she was thinking that she was speaking from the perspective of someone who does identify or practice the Jewish religion. Giovanni, you with us?
I'm here, y'all. I'm here.
Yes. Giovanni, what do you think about Whoopi Goldberg's comment? She said that the Holocaust was not about race, and then she was subsequently, she said it was more about humanity than it was about race, and then she was subsequently suspended, I believe, for 2 weeks from The View. Do you think that her suspension was warranted? You're muted.
In my opinion, no, I do not. It took me a long time, and honestly, I think that a lot of people have that question, like they question, okay, so are Jews white? You know, is being a Jew
being Jewish
separates you from the being Jewish, a Jew, you could a Jew.
Like, I think some people, let's say Jewish, because I do think some people take Jew as a slur, or they think it's more offensive. But in this context, we'll say Jewish.
Oh, I didn't know that. Jews, I didn't know Jews.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that gets kind of convoluted.
My apologies for the to the Jewish community.
Yes.
So yeah, I just think that the accusations of anti-Semitism that has been going on a lot across the nation, and even in Florida, there's like this call to protect the Jewish community, and of course, that is of importance. There have been a lot of attacks and discrimination against Jews or Jewish people across the political spectrum, and even just like daily life. People walk back because people find out that they represent the Jewish community. So I do understand why some people could have been offended, but I think Whoopi Goldberg, she was just she was putting it in terms to where ordinary people who may not be familiar to everything about the Holocaust or anti-defamation or things like that, those type of groups, I think she was just making a point to say, like, well, you know, are Jews not white? Because if that's the case, if okay, we did say we're not gonna say Jews, but I don't know, I've never heard that before. But I guess it's just that point of like, I guess, I don't know, it was just kind of a.
You think there was, like, what you're saying is that you don't feel like there was any malice?
No, I don't think that there was any malice. I don't think that people thinks that she was saying it with malice. I think that they were just saying, like, she doesn't know history. Like, do you not know what happened? And I think she's very familiar with what is going on. But her comment was just that it wasn't about race. So I'm kind of stuck in between. Like, I'll have to do some some digging myself too. I never thought it was a race issue, but she raised the point that I never thought about. And so, you know, I think it's a side to every story.
No, you're right, because I never depicted or thought that she was maybe coming from the context of, hey, when you talk about the Jewish community or Jewish people, or you talk about the Holocaust, and you're saying what is it about race? It's about humanity. It's probably because Jewish people that come in multiple ethnic backgrounds, ethnicities, rather than just looking at it as being Jewish and being white. That's interesting. You raised a good point. I will say this: when it comes to The View, and I don't really watch The View. It's daytime TV or whatever. I'm not their demographic or their target audience. But anytime like you have people saying stuff on The View, there are a lot of people that say a lot of flagrant things on The View.
Right.
Some of their hosts. And it's like, it's always, and this goes back to even with the Nick Cannon situation. Remember when Nick Cannon made comments about the Jewish community? It just seems like, and I know people talk about, oh, cancel culture. It just seems like cancel culture really works a lot better when the target is a black celebrity. Anytime they feel like a black celebrity gets out of pocket, and this speaks to the whole topic of being blackballed, they're always good to kind of put that black celebrity in their place by doing what we call tar and feather them, right? Publicly flogging them, putting them out there, basically, shaming them, putting their nose in it, whether they made a comment. But other people who make comments, like you're right, Giovanni's absolutely right. Or I don't know who said about maybe there needs to be some education. Was that you, Alan?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Remember when Deshaun Jackson, who was an NFL player, said something about the Jewish community, and they were like, "Hey, well, maybe he should be suspended. He should be this. He should be that." But anytime somebody says something about the black community, they're like, "Oh, I wasn't educated," and that's usually suffice. Like I wasn't educated. I didn't know, right? But when it comes to comments about other communities, whether it's the Jewish community, LGBTQ, whatever, they immediately want you canceled. Then we don't get the option of being re-educated. And so we see a lot of that. I don't really necessarily feel too bad for.
And another thing.
Go ahead, Jay.
No, yeah, I think that people on the outside world have to allow for public speakers, whatever, entertainers, to have a point of view. We can't have the same opinion as every single person on this earth. And it's just like certain shows are for certain people. And if you don't agree with what that particular broadcast network is doing, you got to find another show that has your point of view. But to make people be removed from their position because of a point of view that they have on a network, I think it makes journalists false. It's like a false advertisement for journalists to not really be able to speak with an opinion. It's just like, oh, don't make sure you don't offend this culture and that culture and this culture and that culture. It's just like all these different networks out here, and everybody wants to have the same point of view. Now, no, I'm not saying that I want to watch. There should be a network that just blatantly says they hate black people, or a network that blatantly says they hate other races. I'm not saying that should be acceptable, but people have to have point of views.
Right.
And I think that Whoopi Goldberg, she's very known for having a point of view on subjects.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I agree with what Jay is saying, especially because the name of the show is called The View, right? So the purpose is to talk about things from your perspective and how you see it from your eyes.
From your point of view.
Exactly. So I don't feel like Whoopi was like saying it in a way to be harmful, or any way that was going to be harmful to the Jewish community. She was basically speaking on it based on her view. Now, I don't feel like she should have gotten suspended. I feel like because of what the show is supposedly supposed to stand for, that she should have been educated on it, and then probably that could have been a discussion. Like they should have made that into part of an episode, and like that could have been an opportunity to educate her and educate viewers and other people who agree or don't agree. I feel like that would have been like the perfect time to address it right then and there, instead of penalizing her and suspending her, because yes, obviously what she said wasn't accurate, it wasn't right, but that could have been a learning moment. Like you could have made that into something where instead of like penalizing her, you're educating her, and like you're kind of changing the way people are doing things, where it's like you say something like that, you say something wrong, but you legitimately don't feel like it's wrong until you're educated on it. And then when you're educated on it, you're like, oh, okay, like I can see, like I understand it now. And I feel like that could have been the opportunity for them to like make it like a teaching moment, and they didn't. And I get, in a sense, I kind of get like where they're coming from, but I also feel like they could have went about it in a different way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Listen, if anybody's looking, what do I always say when we started this podcast? We say, hey, you have the freedom to say what you want to say, but freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence. But make sure whatever you say, you stand on your own square, right? And right now she's standing on her square. It's just sad that she doesn't have she's not a part of a network that is going to allow her to stand on her square and, like Jesse, you said, have that teachable moment. So Whoopi, they suspended you. You got 2 weeks as a free agent. You are more than welcome to be a guest on the Soapbox podcast, Whoopi. Whoopi, we will welcome you and your point of view. Step up on the soapbox if you can't be on The View. But ladies and gentlemen, we do this every week. We're going to wrap a bow on this conversation, this great, important conversation that we had on the Blackballed episode. We're going to start with the moral of the story. I don't know. Jesse, the producer, wants to know, can we do a solo shot for?
Oh, no.
No. Okay, we're not doing the solo shot. Okay, we're going to start with Alan. Alan, there's no solo shot. I guess the producer's asking me.
I might boycott if we're not doing the solo shot.
I know, like she got, her point. We want to make sure that your point of view is clear, and it's okay. Alan, show how it's done. What's your moral of the story?
First of all, I would like to announce that I'm very disappointed in her lack of solo opportunity-wise shots.
Like everybody don't want to see the cardigan, sweater, shirt, and all that stuff that she got on.
Yeah, very Abercrombie and Fitch. You might be costing us advertising dollars, but we'll talk about that. Talk about that in the next down
immediately.
So the moral of the story, I'll keep it brief. I'll keep it simple. Feelings is not facts, and opinions are not facts. Facts are the only facts. And, make sure that we are able to separate the two and come to some sort of common ground with love, affection, and care.
Indeed. Jay, I know you have a little technical difficulty and you've been working through it. Appreciate that. What's your moral of the story, if you can hear me?
Hey, yep. Moral of the story. Y'all can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Now we can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
So my moral of the story is my moral of the story, I usually have a good moral of the story, but this time I think the moral of the story would be to know your worth. And anytime you feel like somebody is trying to play you or is not valuing what you are worth, it is okay for you to call it out and try to find a resolution around it. Of course, pray about it, give it to God. But I say that because of what's happening to our Black NFL coaches, and I'm pretty sure there are more than one. So I think out of respect, they need to put some respect on our Black coaches' name and our players and their talent. And we need to start calling out this blatant racism that is keeping the minority community divided with the what do we call it? The wealth gap. And it's just, it's time for it to be called out.
All right. Appreciate that. Jesse with the no solo shot. I know, guys. I tried. Boo. Anyway,
Whatever.
Jesse,
tomatoes.
your moral of the story. I wonder if we did this shot. No, it's okay.
First of all, my shirt is not from Abercrombie. It's from H&M. Okay.
Well, we don't know because we can't see it.
Sorry about that. My moral of the story is to speak your truth. Stand up for what you feel is right. Don't be scared of like what people are gonna say based on your truth. Okay, just like everyone sees things from a different light. Everyone sees things from a different perspective, and don't be afraid to be who you are just because people might disagree with that. Not every sorry, my baby got in the way. Not everything that you say people are gonna agree with, and that's okay. As long as you're true to yourself and you speak on your truth, then do your thing. Now, that's not an excuse to be racist or an asshole or, demeaning in any way, but, more to like uplift people and uplift yourself. And like when we talk about Brian Flores, like speak your truth. Like, no, what you're doing is wrong. And I'm going to make sure that I speak my truth. So in the future, this doesn't happen to other people. And like he said, it's a bigger picture. Like he did it for his kids. Like he doesn't want his kids to go through that. So yes, stand on what you believe in and, fuck what everybody else says. Cause then, shout out to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, cause they spoke their truth. They stood on what they felt was right, even though obviously the majority was against them. And look at where we are today. There's still a lot for us to grow, but as long as you stay true to who you are, there can be change. You can see change. So yeah.
Word. Shout out to you. And my moral of the story is this Brian Flores situation is just the tipping point in the beginning of Black History Month in 2022. This is a perfect example for everybody to realize that Black history is made every single day. We have a responsibility, not just for those who've come before us, but to those who are coming after us, to make sure that this place is a better world, better country, better community than when we left it and we were introduced to it. So you make an impact, you create your legacy, and you make sure that when you do so, you leave your mark. And so that is my moral of the story for this week. Listen, Soapbox Nation, y'all were heavy today, and I'm very excited. Soapbox Nation was heavy today. For those who are new to our channel on YouTube or those who are watching us on Facebook, shout out to y'all for coming through. Soapbox Podcast. Make sure you follow Soapbox Podcast at Soapbox Podcast with 2X. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Live Music Lover and all those in our comment section. Shout out to Morgan. Everybody that was rocking with us today on the Soapbox Podcast. Listen. We are the Soapbox Podcast, and we appreciate y'all. Make sure you stand on your square. Have a happy Black History Month. It's just the beginning. That's week 1, so who knows what the next week will bring. So for Giovanni, for Jesse, for Alan York, this is TJ Legacy, and we are the Soapbox Podcast. We appreciate you. Peace.
Anything. Tell them what we talking about. Anything. Tell them what we talking about. Anything.